Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today, Korean Studies Seminar Series. My name is Hoyun Ko. I'm Assistant Professor at PSR Department. Before we begin, I just quickly introduce you to the series itself and introduce our guest speaker today. So Korean Studies Center is organizing a series of special lectures introducing Korean social and public policies with the generous support from Korea Foundation. So far in this semester we have completed 3 seminars already, and then including this one we have 4 more seminars by the end of January. So stay tuned with our email advertisement and also our social media if you are interested in Korea. I think this is one of the best opportunity you can get in touch with top scholars of Korean studies and Korean social sciences. Well, without further ado, let me introduce quickly, his research record is not easy to summarize, as some of you already know. So I'm very happy to introduce you to Professor Myung-jae. He's Underwood Distinguished Professor at Yonsei University in Seoul, South Korea. He has tons of publications on government innovations and government restructuring, e-government, and the future of government. And his articles has been awarded as the top cited article in one of the top journals in the public administration. And he also served in many positions as an advisor and committee members and chairs related to South Korean government renovations and government restructurings. Today he will give a talk with the title of Digital Government and Global Digital Government and Good Governance in Digital Transformation Era, in which he will touch on a range of topics, including good governance, also digital technologies, and how we can use it to improve the social benefits as a whole. So I have no doubt that this lecture will be very, very insightful and will give us a lot of insights to see what will be happening in the future governments. So without further ado, please give a warm applause to Dr. Moon.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your very kind introduction. Well, my full Korean name is, as you introduced, Myung-jae Moon. But you see here, I put M.J Moon. So usually I go by J Moon. And in fact, there is one small story behind it. When I graduated undergraduate and master degree in Korea, and I went to United States for my advanced degree. And the first university I went to in the United States was University of Texas at Austin. Well, Austin, Texas, I thought it's a desert. It's a very hot place. But my first impression was very green over there. But anyway, there are several classes I took. And one very popular class at the time in University of Texas at Austin, LBJ School, Lyndon B. Johnson School. That was public policy school taught by Barbara Jordan. Probably many of you might not have a chance to hear her name, but she is a very famous American politician. She's the first African-American representative. So that she served 3 terms, and then she fed up with politics and she decided to teach in university. So she came down to Texas. Anyway, her class was so popular so that every semester, unlike my class in Yonsei University, every semester we had a lottery because there are so many students who wanted to take her class, but the seats are very limited. So only, I believe, less than 15, 20 students because she didn't want to have a big class. So very competitive, so that in the second semester I tried, I couldn't get in her class. Third semester I tried again, but I wasn't lucky enough. And then last semester before I graduated my master's degree over there, and I was lucky enough to get in a class. Beautiful class, and I enjoyed it. But the only problem I had with her was that she couldn't pronounce my name. Probably just like your name you introduced to foreigners, and then sounds like very odd. And Barbara Jordan, she pronounced my name like Mung, not Myung. Mung sounds very bad to Koreans. Mung, 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 you know, dog barking sound, or mungcheongi, which translate into probably idiot. But I was shy international student at the time. So I just let it go, right? And then last session before I graduate, and then one of the students from, I believe, from Holland, she's sitting next to me, and then she nudged me like this, and then, oh, Myung, this is your last chance. And then, well, just I didn't want to bother her. And then probably 10 minutes, we really wrap up whole class. I raised my hand like this, and then she looked at me, and then, oh, Mung, you have a question. And then I said, no, I don't have a question. I have a kind request. And then she said, what is it? And I said, well, your pronunciation, my name is very strange. And of course, she was very, very embarrassed. So what's your name? I said, M-Y-U-N-G. Yes, I know your name, Mung. She tried 3 times and then kept saying Mung rather than Myung. And then I transferred to Syracuse, and then I put M.J. Moon. So since then, of course, my passport, my full name is Myung-jae Moon, still my official name, but I go by J. Moon because my grandmother and grandmother actually at the time called me J. But anyway, that's small story behind my name. Oops. Probably I spent too much time on my name. But anyway, it's great to visit here. I heard about this university. It's a NU, and then of course your first president. And to me, NU Noble University, and I heard that very selected, talented young people got into this program. I thought that it's a women's university because most of you are ladies. Well, in Korea, many good social scientists, particularly graduate school students, are female students. Used to be male-dominant departments, political science, public administration. These days, we have more female students. Well, this is me, believe it or not. When I was dean, oh, by the way, I'm not dean anymore, I stepped down. But anyway, when I was dean, the university published several magazines, and then the university professional photographer actually took it. So that since then, I used this one for my introduction. Anyway, just a short introduction. I was selected. I don't know why they selected me, but I was one of the world's 100 most influential people in digital government. Korean government has been putting a lot of money and efforts to advance digital government, electronic government. 2027 and 8, I was selected, and 2017, there were 3 Koreans were selected. One minister of Interior and Safety, which is in charge of Korean digital government. And then second one is City of Seoul Mayor. City of Seoul also really putting a lot of efforts to advance e-government. Anyway, I will talk about some technologies which you already know, so that I'm not going to present something that you don't know. I'm going to share some of the perspective, of course, some of the emerging technologies which your country is paying attention to, and many different countries actually try to take advantage of emerging technologies. Of course, technology, here we say e-government or digital government, and then should we stress on E or digital, or should we stress on government? My perspective, well, digital technology, electronic is important, but it's an instrument, means, not the end. So that it's an instrument to do something. Of course, here, that's why the good governance is the one we should pay more attention to. So it's a very powerful instrument which we should take advantage of. But there are a lot of issues we should deal with. Public sector, in terms of culture, dynamics, and bureaucratic structure, and etc. Of course, your government is also been putting a lot of time on this. But anyway, your government, Korean government, I put Google images and 2 countries collaboration, and there are so many events to build bilateral relationship for mutual benefits. For this lunch, I had a lunch with the Korean ambassador to Kazakhstan. I didn't know, but he was my classmate in my college. So that when I landed here, and then I talked about, well, there are some events, and then I realized that, Ambassador Joe, and then his name sounds very familiar, and then he was my classmate, so that we had lunch. But he is so enthusiastic about some of the developments being made between 2 countries. Of course, Korean president visited here, and then tomorrow there's another VIP is visiting, so that I think the relationship is getting better and much tighter, so that I think there's huge opportunity for 2 countries. Your country, e-government is one of the compelling pillar, and I think regardless of the leadership, I think there been big push to advance digital government in Kazakhstan, particularly after the pandemic and during the pandemic, and how digital technology could be used to deal with some of the problems we faced. And Kazakhstan is one of the countries which really demonstrates great benefits and utilities out of the digital technology applications. Based on the e-government survey 2024, actually United Nations, actually they do publish e-government performance of the different countries around the world, and every 2 years, so that there's a report 2020, and then report 2022, and then last month, September 2024, there's a new report. So before I came here, I checked Kazakhstan's rankings. Of course, ranking shouldn't be treated as absolute. It's just a reference information. But anyway, Kazakhstan was number 1 among the inland locked countries, so that the overall ranking around the world, they cover about 200 countries in the world. And Kazakhstan ranked 24. I believe 2022, 2 years ago, the ranking was 28, and then 2020, and then it was 29 and 39. So that as you see, there's a gradual incremental improvement in many ways, particularly online services. Of course, there's development in information infrastructure and the human resource development. Those are 3 major pillars which really compose the e-government performance index. Again, this is not really absolute one, but it could be a piece of reference information which really covers some of the performance in digital government. These are some of the things that I'm sure that you know much better than me, and some of the things being done. Kazakhstan is really demonstrate high achievement among the inland countries, in CIS countries, and particularly online services, as I mentioned. Well, but digital technology is advancing, and early part of this year, I had a chance to visit Las Vegas to participate in CES. CES is Consumers Electronic Shows, which is the largest global demonstration of different electronics and new technologies. So the number of governments, as well as, of course, private sectors, leading big tech companies actually try to share their new products as well as future products. So that's of course, there they have flying cars and all the future products as well. But anyway, the overall theme this year was all on, all together, which means all on and all together, so that not only private sector, but government, nonprofit organizations, and educational institutions like НУ should work together to solve the problems, social problems together. And the highlight was on AI. I'm sure that you have a chance to use ChatGPT 4.0. But here, one of the first writings that I had in my professional career, I had one piece on e-government, the evolution of e-government among municipalities, rhetoric or reality. At the time, that article was published, I believe 2000, so that 24 years ago. At the time, e-government, digital government was discussed among practitioners and scholars, so that people say, well, electronic government, e-government will be the very powerful image of future government. So that I was interested in, well, it's a reality or just a rhetoric. And so I looked at municipal level, local governments, what they do, and then what are the e-government services and systems they have and they provide. And so that at the time, it was more about rhetoric, so that they're saying, well, they do this, they have plan, but reality was very, very limited. But after 5 years and then 10 years since the article was published, of course, that becomes reality. And now, in the era of digital transformation and artificial intelligence, and last year there was a big debate between doomers and boomers. Boomers say, well, AI should be advancing and that it will give us great opportunity and help us to solve a lot of problems. And then doomer side, no, it has a lot of problems, there is a big risk, and then we should be cautious, we should stop temporarily in developing AI. And of course, the majority view is, well, there's a problem and risk, but there's no way you stop it. So that we should be cautious, but we should work on this. And now the question is another rhetoric or reality, and that's something that I want to see. But from the government perspective, I think that there are two different aspects we should consider. One is digital technical debt. Your students probably, you don't have much debt, but your parents might have debt if they try to buy big house, and then if you don't have enough cash, and then you get a loan from the bank. So that debt is not necessarily bad, right? So that because of that, and then you can buy automobiles and house. So it's not necessarily bad as far as it's manageable. But if you have too much debt and unmanageable, and then it causes a lot of problems. Similarly, there is a technical debt, which means that the technical level a particular government has, and then the highest level technology available at the time, and then the gap between what you have and then the one really advanced level, the gap will be technical debt. So that somehow technical debt is not necessarily bad, because if you don't want to have any debt, and then it could be waste, because the technology you have may not be the one that you use fully. For example, here you have smartphones, and then here tablet PC, and then probably students might use 50% of the whole capacity. Maybe the other half, maybe you don't use it. So that what would be a proper level of technology we can have and we are affordable, that's very, very important decision. So that managing the technical debt is very, very important. But often politicians, they want to be really in cutting edge level. Somehow it could be too much, and it might cause some financial waste. The other one that I want to emphasize is over-engineering issues. Over-engineering issue is similar one, and because of that ambition, and then often governments fall in trap of over-engineering. In other words, the level of technology we want to or we can handle is 50, and then the system we develop is 100, so there are a lot of money invested. But once you have the system developed and open it, and then only 50% is used by the government officials or by citizens. And then that 50% would be waste. So the over-engineering issue is another thing that we need to think about. So on the one hand, manageable technical debt. On the other hand, over-engineering issues. The first project I had when I was in the United States, I got some money from IBM. And then at the time, my first project was looking at 50 state governments, e-procurement systems. At the time, e-procurement system was something new, so that many state governments were interested in that, particularly governors. So initially, my thought was, well, you know, big states like New York, Texas, California, where they have a lot of money, and then probably they have good e-procurement systems. But some of the states like Wyoming, well, I don't mean, well, the small states where they don't have enough resources, relatively speaking, and probably they might be a little bit practically defer the adoption decisions concerning e-procurement. But when I looked at, survey 50 states, and then I found all 50 states actually adopted e-procurement systems, 100%. Of course, the level of utilization is very, very different. So that some big states, they really use the e-procurement system in many ways. But some of the states actually, they do introduce and adopt e-procurement systems, but their utility and utilization is very, very limited, very nominal sense. But governors, they want to say, well, we are very cutting edge. We really try to deal with procurement efficiency, and also we want to fight against the procurement-related corruptions so that we're going to use the new systems. They want to say that. So there is some over-engineering issue was there, I realized. Well, technology, do you know when the first mobile phone was developed? Handheld phone was developed in 1973. The real mobile phone was developed right after World War II. Of course, at the time, the phone was a very heavy one, 80 pounds, which is so about 40 kilograms, so that they put in a car trunk and then they could move. And then now you have mobile phone, and then you can do everything, right? What about World Wide Web? Do you know when it was developed? World Wide Web? World Wide Web was developed 1989, and Tim Lee, yeah, and he is British. He developed World Wide Web when he was a researcher in Switzerland, in a research institute in Switzerland. At the time, he thought about, well, if he has some document and want to get some comments from other people, and then he mailed out his documents to other people and get some comments. And then he thought about interesting idea, well, why don't I put my document here, and then people access to my document and then put some comments. So that's how he thought about World Wide Web concept. He visited Korea last year, and we had a lunch together with some groups. And then he was a little bit angry. And then the reason why he was angry was the one he thought about when he developed World Wide Web was more democratic access to information by everybody. And then these days, of course, big tech companies really dominant and dominating over much information. So that he tried to realize the original concept and value he had through data. So that data sovereignty, so individual sovereignty over individual data, and allow other people access to my data or withdraw my data. So that more data sovereignty related one, and that's the way he realized his original thought. I shared this piece of story because technology is advancing, but sometimes the way we design and we want to, and then sometimes the other direction. But the bottom line is new technology is developing, and then new idea is coming. Of course, now artificial intelligence is the one. ICT roles not only in government sector but private sector and nonprofit sector, and there are a number of ways we can think of. But I'm not going to cover this too much. But there are a lot of things that we can consider. Every country, not every, many governments and many corporations, they do care about digital transformation. Of course, Kazakhstan government also care about digital transformation. And this is the survey result by Deloitte, and they ask different governments, and then they ask different corporations, and then they very simple question: why do you care digital transformation? And then corporates, private companies say, well, we want to do fast innovation. And then second reason, well, we want to modernize up to date, come up with the time. And then asking governments, why do you care digital transformation, your government? And then number one, we want to modernize. Number two, again, fast innovation. Number three, we want to meet citizens' expectation and demand. Probably very similar here as well. Well, but somehow technology these days is disrupting the normal processes and sometimes new services. So that's why people call disruptive technologies. And the way we perceive technology in a positive way and pessimistic and negative way, maybe somewhere between, depending on how you perceive technologies. Whenever you have new technologies, and there are different perspectives, and it's really depending on the way people think about society, the way people think about technology. Take a look at this one. Do you know where it is? Maybe some of you have been there or want to be there sometime. This is, well, the hint is this is Australia. Bondi Beach in Sydney. You're from Australia. So that, if you go to, I'm sure that you've been there, Bondi Beach, right? So if you go to Bondi Beach, and then there's a swimming pool, of course this is a Pacific Ocean, right? And suppose that you are swimming in the swimming pool in Pacific Ocean, or if you are outside of a swimming pool, and then it's a very different story, right? If you are inside of a swimming pool, and then probably you can just, enjoy and drift around here and there, and probably you can listening to music, or you can talk to your parents, like this child is. If you are outside of a swimming pool, unless you are really, really good swimmer, just like Professor Cole, I heard that he is very, very good swimmer, or if you are a good surfer, unless you are like that, you're going to be in big, big trouble. And digital transformation is something like being in out of the swimming pool. And it's changing unless we have good skills and right skills and aware of the situation. Unless we are like that, we're going to be in very trouble. Not only at individual level, but also in organizational and system and even country level as well. Here I just want to introduce Korean e-government. Korean e-government being sometimes, according to the United Nations Global e-government survey, and this year they dropped to fourth, 2 years ago third and second, and then sometimes at the 2010 they were first. So somehow they're considered to be one of the forerunners in digital government. In fact, it's quite interesting when Korean government really initiated its e-government was the time when the country had big problems. 1997, probably some of you might read some story about financial crisis at the time in Asia. Probably many of you before you were born, I guess. Okay. But anyway, 1997, right before I got my PhD degree, I got my PhD in 1998. But I remember vividly because at the time I was a Korean Student Association president in Syracuse University. So a lot of Korean students couldn't pay tuition because of the financial crisis. So that many returned home because they couldn't pay tuitions and they couldn't survive there. And as a president, I negotiated with the universities and delayed the tuition payment by 1 year and 1.5 years. So anyway, we had some negotiation. At that time, Korean government should do some reform. Of course, not voluntarily they did, but there are big pressure to do something because of the real crisis-like situations. So that government reform was initiated, and then private sector reform, financial reform were initiated at the time. And that time, e-government was presented as a way to reform Korean public sector. And I think it's interesting because, well, it's a big innovation and then not really grand design. Of course, it was grand design, but in the time of crisis, and then they had to something. And then, luckily, e-government was presented as a one. There are a lot of development cases. Of course, Korea, late 1960s and 70s, big Korean industrial growth and strong industrial policy and big push and transfer from light industry to heavy chemical industry. Anyway, education reform, industrial policy, healthcare, welfare system changes. A lot of cases being stored in KDI school platform, which they call K-Developedia, so that Korean Development Encyclopedia, probably that's the acronym they use. I wrote a piece on evolution of Korea's e-government, so there's some story about how Korean e-government started and then how they make some advancement. And I checked how many people actually view that story. And of course, many government officials look at that, foreign government officials view that. And I found that more than 500,000 people, government officials, I believe that's mostly foreign government officials, they're interested in Korean digital government. The first time that Korean government actually introduced computers was 1967. And at the time, they imported one computer system from IBM, IBM Computer 1401. And I saw one photo, actually, when they imported IBM computer. And it's like, they're escorting VIPs, president or prime ministers from other countries. All the motorcycles escorting that computer on the truck. And then they thought that's, really, really, of course, that's an important one at the time. But anyway, it's a very funny photo from today's perspective. The reason why Korean government imported that IBM computer was, at the time, all the census data, they calculate and then process them in manual way, but they thought, well, we should use computer. And then they decided to use computer and then introduced the IBM computer to process that data and statistics. And that's how people really looked at Korean e-government, the first start of Korean e-government. And then the day they introduced that IBM computer, and then they put the Digital Government Day. And now every year they celebrate Digital Government Day. Anyway, the real e-government, as I said, in 1990s during the economic crisis, and Korean president is elected every 5 years, so that often there's a 5-year new plan for many different things, and then ICT infrastructure and digital government and something ICT strategic plan. Also, every 5 years they do have a strategic plan for ICT infrastructure and e-government. Of course, they use different names. And then this administration, they also coined another term called digital platform government, but somehow they're very similar in many ways. Well, I'm not going to look at this one, but some of the system I want to share, which really demonstrates some of the basic concepts. 온나라 system, which is the system every single government officials, when he or she goes to his or her office and then turn on his or her computer, and this is the system they use every day, so that they produce documents and then they look up some of the documents made by people who move to other places, so that if he want to get some references, and then he should look at last year's documents, and then this is sort of knowledge management systems, so that they look up different documents and different versions. It's very, very important because usually in government, because of the accountability issues, some of you are from public policy programs, accountability is very, very serious one. And so that in many times, version 1, 2, 3, and final version, and then what you have in the system used to be the final version rather than first draft, second draft, and third draft. It's very critical because if there's a big change from second draft to third draft, and then if there's some problem, and then investigators are going to say, oh, who made that change? And then if the change wasn't that good one, and then somebody should be accountable, so that to avoid that risk, usually it's very common to save the last version rather than draft 1, draft 2, draft 3. So that ensure the accountability, and government try to make government officials save all different drafts whenever there are changes, and then there are different versions in the system. Of course, I don't think they really do that 100%, but system really help to do that at least. And also decision making, and also evaluation, performance evaluation, so that all the things been happening in this particular system. And the other one is, and I'm sure that Kazakhstan government does that too, Korean government's putting a lot of money every year on social welfare program. So there are more budget to different social welfare programs. It's good. On the other hand, you allocate more budget on that category, and then one concern would be, well, do we spend money in the right way? And then let me just give one short example. Suppose that there is a low-income family support, and then low-income family, as far as they are proved to be low-income family, and then they are eligible for low-income support from the government, so there's some financial support from the government. So think about from the perspective of government officials, if you are the one who decides whether he is eligible, she is eligible for low-income support from the government, and then the document you look at is income information. And then what they found was there are some of the people who received low-income support from government, and then they drive BMW, and they drive, Mercedes-Benz, and then they go to other country and play golf all the time. And then, there's something wrong. So now they really try to put different pieces of information in the systems, like where they live, what's the income, pension, property tax, what kind of cars they drive, automobile informations, and then what kind of, how many international travel they do, so the immigration information, all different kinds of information they put together. Of course, privacy is very, very critical, so that whenever the one who has authority to look and check the information should have the access. But anyway, when government citizens look at only income information and make decisions, and then now they look at all related different pieces of information, and then make decisions. And it's very obvious what help government more efficient. Well, it's easy to say, well, linking information, right? But if you ask government officials, what's the last one you want to do? Is, well, the last one I want to do as a government official is sharing my information with other agencies. And they don't want to share information because information and data they have is the source of authority. So it's not easy to do that. Even if you take one step further, sharing public information with financial institutions, non-governmental organizations, even it's more challenging. Let me give another example. There's some financial advantage, benefits to handicapped persons in Korea. So that if you are handicapped persons, and then private banks offer much higher interest rate on your savings. So that to get that benefit, you should submit and prove that you are handicapped persons. And who issued the handicap certificate? Government. So here again, if that piece of information can be shared with the private bank through digital way, and then they don't have to go to local office and get the certificate and then hand it over to private banks. Great idea. But when we try to discuss this one, do you know who really opposed to that idea? Who? Banks? Handicap interest groups. And then they, well, it's very sensitive information, of course. So that, well, if somebody, bank, access to that sensitive information, oh, they don't want to do that. But the one who really tried to promote information sharing is, well, if you hand over the paper handicap certificate, and then there's no way you can control somebody copy that document and then share or give it to other people. There's no way you can check it. But if you have bank to access that information, and then there's digital log so that you know exactly who and when access that information. So you can make it more accountable. So that here, there's some concern and how you solve it. It's a pretty complicated issues. Well, take a look at this one. So after finishing your master's degree or even bachelor's degree or PhD degree, you'll get a job, and then if you have a job already, and then, I don't know, you are here or there, and then, on the top. Of course, everybody wants to be sitting on the top positions and graciously looking over the subordinates or the staff members. So the people in the bottom, they think that, well, they do all work, but all the blames I get from my boss. And then the people on the top, and then, well, the people in my staff, they just work, 8 to 5, and then they go home, they can relax. But as people on the top, and I'm 24 hours working, and then if I go to party, and then it's not for enjoying, I just networking, that's another part of the work. So the perspective is so different. And now the question is how you really deal with the communication issues with digital technologies. And then here another one. Here Andre is working very hard, and all other people watching over Andre make sure he is working very hard. Of course, it's a lack of human resource management skills. And of course, it's very sarcastic photo. But somehow, is there any way digital technology can help us to enhance the human resource efficiency or resource efficiency? And take a look at this one. This is cemetery. And there are many tombstones. And then tombstones, there are some words that you really like. Truth, efficiency, service, accountability, integrity, public good, honesty. Those are something that we always say we are doing public service, working in public sector, and then these are the values that I want to achieve. But people outside, they think they're all bad. So there's a wide gap between what we believe we do in public service and then what people think civil servants do in public organizations. And is there any way to narrow the gap? So that, again, this is another perception differences between government officials and citizens, just like in organization, perception gap between people in low rank and then people in the top rank. And another issue is that we are, as we experienced pandemic, we are getting very tough so-called VUCA problems. And the challenge would be we will have more problems like that. But sometimes, policymakers, they're talking about different solutions, but not really necessarily making timely decisions. And that's what we call NATO. NATO stands for what? Yes, no action, talk only. Sometimes, we try to talk about some of the solutions and alternatives, but not necessarily making timely actions. And now here again, digital technology, is there any way we can do that? And there are a lot of data analytics actually help us to do some good decisions. Of course, there are still a lot of issues. It's time to wake up. And then here, I want to introduce this very interesting animal. This animal is Komodo dragon. In Indonesia, Komodo Island, Komodo dragon survived there. Komodo dragon is the largest reptile in the world. And then they survived in Komodo Island. They're living in island, which means that they cannot move one island to another island. But they survived, the huge reptile. And several years ago, there's one interesting article published in Nature journal, and they found a very interesting thing. The Komodo dragon, just like many other reptiles, and they lay eggs. And they lay eggs, and there are two different ways. One is male Komodo dragon and female Komodo dragon mate together and then lay eggs. In that case, half of the eggs will be hatched to baby male Komodo dragon, and then the other half, baby male Komodo dragon. And then the second way is secret. And then that's without male Komodo dragon, female Komodo dragon only can lay eggs. And then that eggs, when it's hatched, 100% hatched to what? What? Female baby Komodo dragon? The other way around. 100% male baby Komodo dragon. And they wonder why. Of course, we don't know. We cannot ask Komodo dragon why you do that. But the speculation is, well, because they cannot move one island to another, so the female Komodo dragon lay eggs without male Komodo dragon, which means that there's not really many male Komodo dragon around that area. So they're probably to make a gender balance, and then all 100% eggs hatched to baby male Komodo dragon. I don't know if that's really true or not. But anyway, the bottom line is, if that's true, and then Komodo dragon survived by adapting to the environment, in this case, island. And just like that, individuals and organizations and governments should adapt to changing environment. And here, again, digital technology and digital transformation is the environment that we should pay attention to. This is the OECD report, and then there's evolution of e-government, so that from analog government to e-government, and then digital government. Of course, we often use the two terms interchangeably, But anyway, e-government is more about, user-centered approach, so the one-stop service, and then try to provide the services to citizens. And then digital government is more about user-driven, so the citizen drive and more participating in delivering services. We take one step further. That's the one I added. So digital platform government on which private and public sector and even executive branch and judiciary branch, all different public sectors actually working together to solve the problems. And I think that's something that we need to do. And to do that, we have Presidential Committee on Digital Platform Government. And the slogan is, well, government should be smarter to make citizens more convenient. Well, I'm not going to do that. And one thing that I want to do is that in Korea, we have seal certificate. So that in Korean, we say 인감증명. So whenever you buy new property or you buy new automobile, and then it's a proof to individuals' willingness to take a particular actions. So that normally, well, buying house, that's a big thing, right? So that you want to really sure that he really want to sell the property to somebody. And then to prove that, and then this particular certificate should be submitted. This is the only, I believe, one you cannot print public document. Other things you can usually print from your computer and then you can use that one. But this one's so important one, so that you should go to local government office and get it, a paper. And then the paper is so special quality of paper. Anyway, even there are only 2 countries having this one. Do you know which country? On the earth, there are only 2 countries, I believe. 3, maybe 2. Korea is one. Japan is another one. So that it's a 110 years old system, and then people so trust on this system, so that we try to change it. But people really like this one, so that we couldn't change it. And this year we really tried to change so that, for normal purpose we can. So now I think it's starting this month, we have people can print. Unless it's used for borrowing money or buying, transacting properties. So, but there are many other cases we use this one, and we try to make it more digital. Well, wow. In 5 minutes, I will stop. Is it okay? There are many other things we can think of. It's a very simple technology, even not AI. Take a look at this one. This one, in water consumption, of course, there's a sensor, so that how much water you consume. And then very simple idea, and then you know which household, how much they consume the water. And if there's a very household where only elderly people living there by himself or by herself, and then no water consumption there, and then you can check, and then you can send the social worker and make sure that he or she is okay. So that this is one thing that when you try to use some data and then make a connections, and then you can do a lot. So this is some information, one example we can think of. Here, this is one which is I thought it's a great idea, but which wasn't really successful. But here, if you go to city of Seoul, garbage can on the street, and then you don't know when it's full in the garbage can, and somebody should dump it and then empty it. And then if you put sensor, and then if it's almost full, and then that sensor gives text to the people, and then people can check it and then dump it. We tried this one, but it wasn't really not quite popular. Another example, this is not Korean example, this is American example. And poll, which is predictive policing. Whenever you have a lot of data, and then you can do a lot. So that in London, LA, New York, and there are a lot of crimes, and then big data sets there. And then based on the data analytics, October, about 6 o'clock, and particular place, and then particular crime occurs a lot. And then you can just send patrol and then prevent possible crimes. And very popular, and then many police departments actually adopted the technology. And then LAPD, Los Angeles Police Department, decided not to use it. Though it's very, very effective, but they decided not to use it 2 years ago. Do you know why? It's very accurate, very predictive. They decided not to use it because of that system creates a lot of bias against some minority communities and things like that. So that I think the social consensus is very, very important, and it's more important than technology per se. And the other example would be the machine learned epidemiology system. In Los Angeles, Chicago, of course, there are a lot of restaurants, for example. And then to avoid any foodborne illness, and then they check the restaurants, so the inspections, of course. So that they compared when they send food inspectors to restaurants, and then machine learned epidemiology system, really looking at all the social media data, mobility, people's movement, mobility data. For example, Yelp, when people say, oh, this restaurant is great, delicious, oh, this restaurant very dirty, I got sick, a lot of information. And then based on that analytics, and then they send food inspectors. Traditional way, based on individuals' knowledge and experiences, and then go and check restaurants, and they found 1 out of 4 problem and unsafe, so that 25% unsafe. And then machine learned epidemiology system, and 1 out of 2 they found unsafe, so that 50%. So based on that one, of course, you know which one is more efficient or not. More about automation and human resource. Of course, a lot of people worry about job replacement. And on the right-hand side, that's the report I did for Korean government. They want to look at how automation might replace government servants. So that I did 10,000 job description of civil servants, different positions, and then classify them what they do, and then likelihood of automation, which has implication about job replacement. And I did that asking government really want to do some strategic plan for future human resource development and human resource planning. But we couldn't, so that government decided not to open this report. When government do this type of research funded, and then it should be open to public. But they couldn't open this information at the time because labor union might translate this one as a way to government's intention to restructure the government officials. But the bottom line is we should take a look at this perspective and prepare what's the area we need more people, what's the area that we can replace with digital technologies. My last page, railway. Anybody knows how wide the railway is? The width of railway? No engineer? It's 1.45 meters, so they're a little bit shorter than 1.5 meters. But why it's 1.5? Why not 2 meter? If you have a 2 meter railway and you have much bigger train. Before we invented train, we had horse wagon. And horse wagon, the shaft, which links two wheels, that's 1.45. And then later, train became 1.45. And why horse wagon shaft is 1.45? We should go back to Roman era. Roman era, Roman chariot, they used 2 horses. That's the popular one. And sometimes they used 3 horses. The popular one is 2 horses. two horses hip together, that was about 1.45. And then horse wagon 1.55. And then train, railway became 1.45. Rocket, space shuttle, they have big, huge engines. 2 engines, 3 engines, sometimes 4 engines. The diameter of engines, how long would that be? Again, 1.45, yes. Why? They should carry very carefully with by train. Of course, exaggerations, right? But the point I try to make is, well, Roman chariot 1.45, horse wagon 1.45, train 1.45, and rocket engines 1.45. Something we don't want to change. Kazakhstan's culture, tradition, you don't want to change it. You want to pass over to next generations. But something that we want to change and upgrade is capacity and power. And I think digital technology would be one instrument. Of course, it might not be the instrument, but it could be one powerful instrument we can think of. And here, my last one. Einstein's words, not my word. Life is like riding a bicycle. To keep your balance, you must keep moving forward. Probably artificial intelligence, doomer side and then boomer side. We need the balance, benefits and risk, positive and negative. And here, something that we shouldn't change, something we want to upgrade and change. We need some balance, but we cannot stop. If we stop, we're going to falling down. We should keep moving forward with caution. Thank you. Well, I'm supposed to talk a little bit shorter, but something that I wanted to say. Probably I shouldn't talk about my name, and then probably I could make the time. But that's, the professor often say, oh, my presentation going to be short. The line is what? Often longer and longer, right? Well, if you have any question or comments, anything about my presentation or anything about Korean government, of course, I'm not the one who can answer every question, but I'll try to do my best. Yes? Well, privacy privacy protection is one critical, and that's the thing that there is not really one single answer. It's a societal decisions. Let me give one example. A long time ago, Korean government had a plan to have a digital ID. And then at the time, technology was there, but Korean government couldn't introduce digital ID because of the concern raised by many civic organizations who really want to protect privacy. And now mobile ID is coming here now, so that, of course, voluntary basis, people have driver's license, mobile ID, and have planned to have mobile ID, passport, etc. So now people sort of get into that and then more willing to do that. Let me give you another example. I thought it's a very funny and, well, funny while serious example. I cannot tell which country, but there's one Caribbean countries, and they wanted to introduce digital ID system. Digital ID system, and then they want to include many different pieces of information in digital ID. Of course, usually, you know, your blood type, your gender, and so that basic information. And some countries, they want to have, you know, the bank information as well. But anyway, that Caribbean country want to have foot size information. I thought, why foot size? And then think about, you know, the Caribbean countries, there are a lot of beach. And then criminal investigation, foot size is very, very critical. And then that really creates a lot of social attention. And so that there are, I think, 20 different pieces of information, but you know, that foot size, footprint information was really the one highlighted. And then there's big debate, and then so that idea couldn't pass through the legislation, and then that footprint is omitted, and then they passed that information, that legislation. But so that I'm saying this is really depending on country. Another example would be CCTV. If you go to London, Seoul, you have a lot of CCTVs. It's very effective in preventing and investigating criminals. But if you go to some other countries in the Northern Europe, and then there's not really many CCTVs. So it's really societal consensus. Going back to your point, you know, well, probably for the convenience of a lot of services could be handled by banks. Maybe they didn't ask your consent, but probably that's the consensus believed to be made. And if there are some other issues, probably could be changed later, but you know. But anyway, it's somehow government thought it's for public interest, and then the side effect might be minimal. And if there's some other issues arise, and then probably they're going to reconsider that one. Any other questions? Yes. Okay. Oh, yeah, microphone. Okay.
Thank you, first of all, for such an interesting and insightful presentation. I was just wondering about your evolution phases of e-government, from analog to e-government, digital government, and then digital platform, platform government that you were talking about. Now, in what ways this is going to be different from the current stage of digital transformation? Oftentimes we also use the word digital governance rather than government, which brings in the public sector, the private businesses, non-profit sectors. They're all expected to be transformed using AI, digital technologies. So what's the future like when you talk about digital platform government? How is it going to be different from the current?
Okay, so that, you know, there are several aspects we can consider. One would be the current form of digital government. The focus is really one-stop service, so that you go one place and then all the services, you don't have to go this other agencies. And digital platform governments, the ideal direction is zero-stop and then non-stop. So that even, why should we ask citizens come to office? If government has a lot of information and then they know what you need. So the more anticipatory approach. Of course, you need to make some consent so that in advance government knows if one family has a baby, and then you know exactly what kind of services they're going to expect to get. So that even they don't have to fill out the form to receive those services. So the more zero-stop or non-stop service, that's one thing. Second aspect would be the conventional and current e-government and digital government is more about executive branch. So a lot of information sharing is among different agencies in in executive branch or central and local governments. If you go to Korea local government office and there's a kiosk and you can get a lot of public documents, always there are 2 kiosks. Why? It should be 1, right? But it's one is executive branch government. The other one is court. And family certificate, for example, adoption information, that's not handled by executive branch. That's legal and then court. And court, actually, judicial branch is so conservative. You say executive branch is conservative here, super conservative. But from the citizens' perspective, they don't care. It's an executive branch or judicial branch, as far as I get the right document. But they are different seats, right? So here, gear, so that shifting from more executive branch focused, now, well, whole of government, including executive and judiciary. So that digital platform government, now we have people from courts, and then they work together, and then how they really share the information. So that's another one. And the last one would be more data analytics, so that not only government information and data, but also data produced and handled and managed by the private sectors. For example, there's one system in Korea which handles more than 8,000 different information. 5,000 are from government statistics and government information. And then 3,000 are private sector information. And they try to put together. And what the purpose is that it's more like early warning system. So that based on data analytics, if there's something strange, and then just like in what the machine learned epidemiology systems. So that based on data analytics, if there's something needs some attention, and then they give a warning, and then flag, and then government official or policymakers can give more attention to that. So that those are more sort of anticipatory, and they are more whole of government in a much broader sense. So that's something that changed. Yes.
Thank you, Professor Moon. And my question is maybe not related with Kazakhstan context. Nowadays, there are some societies which getting into the aging society, and so how do governments deal with the relation between digitalizing their services with the senior society in which people may be getting old and they are not very, let's say, digital literated. Yeah, so this is something that I'm
yes,
concerned.
that's so that digital literacy is very critical. So that there is a digital divide issue is very important issues. So many countries care the people who are not in the even level of digital literacy, so that elderly and then people in rural area, and they try to get better access and same level of digital knowledge. So they provide a lot of extra training programs. For example, my father, he's approaching 90, and these days he doesn't do any longer, but when he was 70, and then he went to local government program where he learned how to send emails and then even Photoshops. So that program, of course, partially funded by the government, but tried to help those people who in need. There's always offline access. In other words, of course, digital by design, so whatever you can do by digital, and they try to build that system through digital services. On the other hand, those who are familiar with, not familiar with the digital, and then they offer the traditional way, they do that. But if you look at some other countries, Denmark, the global e-government survey, Denmark is #1. And then their approach is very radical to me. The one thing good is every adult, they should register their bank account, so that if somebody's need to get some financial assistance from the government, just like low-income support. And Korean case, and they will ask what's your bank account or some other way. Denmark, they don't ask because they already bank account is registered, so that digital by design principle is applied. My friend who does research on digital government, and then one day he showed his the government portal, and then he used his ID and then password authentication and access his portal, and then just suppose if I get divorced, you know what I do is I apply divorce, and then if my wife agree, boom, and then process starts. And that thing, Korea never you can do that, you know. So that to what extent you can push, so that sometimes, you know, the non-digital way is still also should be available for those people who are not familiar with the digital channels and mechanism. On the other hand, social norm is also very, very critical.
Okay, so thank you, Professor Moon, and thank you everyone for your
Thank you.
wonderful questions. So let me wrap up this seminar today, and then I will keep you posted about the following seminars as well. So thank you everyone, have a good evening.